So it seems all piano players want to play fast. So today we'll talk about playing fast. Before we get the discussion going, let me play some stuff that I think is fast to sort of set the stage for things here. Okay, well, you may have to give up something to play that fast, and there's a way to do it, which I can show you. But keep in mind that the golfer Tiger Woods gave up golf for 6 months once to totally destroy his game, start all over again. He deconstructed his stroke, did terribly in his own putting green, I guess, and then finally got it together. So there is something to this that I need to explain to you. Okay, the first rule of fast piano playing is to have as many notes under the hand in one handful as you can. For instance, in a C scale, you have 3 notes and then 5 more. The next thing is to keep the thumb way in over the knuckle. The thumb and the forefinger determine everything. All the power comes from these two things. And when you change positions, handful to handful, the thumb always determines where you go and how far the hand goes in and a lot of other things. Okay, so thumb in over the knuckle, not over the nail. In a minute you'll see what happens if you don't do that. Okay, when you practice the various positions, always practice the next higher position first. For instance, in a C scale, anyone can do the first 3 notes. It's done. You should be thinking away to the next handful, which is F. The reason you practice the next higher handful first is that it needs to have a very specific position based on the thumb to play it well. If you don't, if you just let the preceding position determine the position of the next handful, it'll get all messed up. In other words, when you do this, cross your thumb under, your hand is pointed at about 10 o'clock. But to play the next handful fast, you need to have your hand pointed almost 1 o'clock, at least 12 for 1. Thumb in over the knuckle. Okay. Now, if you allow the first position to determine the next position, thumb hits the knuckle, you have to suddenly recoup, get the hand over here. And coming down, it's the same thing in reverse. To know how to finish out the second handful, you need to practice the next position, in this case going down. If you bring the thumb way in, you see the hand looks like this, index in the middle of the 2 black keys. And this will help you flip over and just get there. You just think away to. If you don't, if you reach over now in reverse, the thumb will go over the nail, and as you come down, these fingers will fall off the piano. There'll be thumb on the nail here. And each time you do that, hitting the thumb on the nail and crossing over too much, the thumb is always loud. It'll always determine the downbeat. But if you bring the thumb way in over the knuckle, and then keep a beat in mind always. Okay, be aware that the downbeat in the second position is G. The thumb is in between the beats. This way you avoid hitting the thumb loudly when its turn comes up. So how do you do this? You need to memorize where the beats are. The beats are, in fact, C, E, G, and B. what you're doing is blocking out the position, which it becomes really important when you go up 2 octaves, because you notice the beats are this. So what was that? Well, it was 1, 3, 2, 4, back to 2. Here's the thumb down here, having to move up almost an octave. So you think it's hard just to move the beats up. You can see how hard it would be to maintain a good hand position, thumb in, when you're actually doing all the extra notes. Now this applies to jazz too, when you're doing more abstract ideas. Here's some bebop. Okay, if you analyze that and slow it down, it becomes little handfuls. 3 notes, 4 or 5 notes, and then about 8 more. Each one is a little handful. But it sounds like one scalular array of notes, but you cannot think of note to note to note, because you'll never change position fast enough, and you can't think of the next note anyway. So always think of groups of 3 to 4 to 5 notes at the same time, like the pentatonic scale. There's no limit to how fast you can play something like that if you're thinking as a handful to a handful. So recapping the scale part of this, you're playing 2 little handfuls, and each one can be played infinitely fast. The first 3 notes, I played it infinitely fast, slow it down. The next 5, I played it infinitely fast, it sounded like a chord, now slow it down. So the last thing to do is simply just jump to the next position with no thumb under. So keep the beat in mind. So we'll go into part 2 to further applications of this in a minute.